How are you guys? Good. I am really excited to get to spend this week with you. Really looking forward to opening up God's Word with you every morning. I get to do this a little bit each summer, but I'll just be honest and tell you this is one of my favorite weeks to do. Not just because Oregon is beautiful and way less hot and muggy than Oklahoma at this time of year, but also because I really enjoy you guys. This is just one of my favorite groups. You guys' excitement and passion and all those things is something that is just contagious for me. So I'm really pumped to get to jump in with you all today. So let's do that. Have you ever found yourself stuck in a situation that you did not want to be in, but all of your efforts to try and get out of that situation only made things worse? You ever been in one of those kind of moments? I mentioned earlier when I was up here with Lane that my wife and I, we have 3 kids, Ella, Hudson, and Hadley. Our youngest is Hadley. She just turned 11 in March. And when she turned 11, Hadley used all her birthday money that she had scrounged up to buy something that she had been wanting for a very, very long time. She was super pumped about this thing. She had been asking about it for a while. So I'll show you a picture real quick. This is Hadley with her pride and joy, okay? Hadley is like I said, 11 years old, and she is beautiful, and she is so much fun, and she can be a little bit of a mess sometimes, but she's awesome and amazing. But in her hands right there is Mocha, her pet hamster. And Mocha is what's called a teddy bear hamster. And teddy bear hamsters, I guess, are known for being like extra fluffy and cute and all of those things. And he is. He's really adorable, as you can see there. But don't let the fluffy fur and the cute little beady eyes fool you, because that hamster right there is an evil genius. Of all the pets we have ever owned, there has been no pet that has ever caused me more headaches than that little hamster right there. Basically, from the moment we have brought Mocha home, he has only done 3 things: eat, sleep, and devise new ways of breaking out of his cage. And he is really, really good at that last one. It started the very first day we got him home. Hadley goes to the pet store, she gets him, she brings him back, she's all excited, and we've got this really like fancy triple-decker cage that we've bought off of Amazon, and I had put it together the night before. It's got all these different levels, and it's got tubes going everywhere, and it's got a little house for him to sleep inside of, and a wheel, all these things, right? And so we go and we put him in there, and immediately Mocha just starts running all over the place, and we're like, this is awesome, he loves it, he's playing all through it. Eventually, he kind of wears down, he goes and he inside his house and he goes to bed. And then a little bit later, we go to bed. The next morning, I am woken up by my wife, who's kind of shaking me awake, and she's going, Drew, wake up. Mocha's gone. And I kind of pop my head. I'm like, gone? What do you mean? Like, oh my gosh, did we leave the door open to the cage? She's like, no, the door's closed, everything's locked up, but Mocha's not in there. So I pop up out of bed, and I immediately start making my way down the hall and check in there, and I start walking out, and I'm freaking out a little bit. I mean, this is the very first day we got her hamster. She's been saving up and asking for this for forever, and she's going to be devastated if we cannot find this hamster, or if our cat finds the hamster before we find the hamster. Now, Hadley's not awake yet, so we've got a little time to work, but as I walk out into the living room, I begin to look around, and I just realize I don't even know where to start. Like, he could be anywhere in this house, and I have no idea where to even begin looking. So I remember I pull out my phone, and I just start Googling how to find a hamster, right? That's where we're at this moment. And as I'm typing this, though, out of the corner of my eye, I notice our cat hunched down, really like serious and still, facing the piano in our living room. I'm like, oh no. So I go over there real quick, and fortunately the cat does not have the hamster, but I can hear this scurrying, scratching sound underneath the piano, and that's where he is. The cat has him trapped back there underneath the piano. And so we pull the cat out, put her in another room, and then we go, and we're there by the piano kind of trying to coax Mocha out, calling his name, but he's not moving, man. He's terrified back up against that wall. So eventually we have to pull the piano out and nab him and then take him to the cage. And when we do, I see where the problem is. This cage that we got was really cool looking, really fancy, but it's kind of cheap. It was one you put together yourself, but it's not super square. So every time you get like one corner fastened, another one kind of pops open over here. And there was this little gap up in the top left corner of the cage, and during the night he had climbed up and squeezed himself through that gap to get out. So we get that all patched up and fixed, make sure it's all locked up, and everybody goes their separate ways for the day, to work and to school and all those things. When Hadley gets back from school, she's so excited to go play with her new pet, so she runs back to her room, and the cage is empty again. This time he hasn't gotten far. He's actually still in Hadley's room by the time we find him. Actually, my oldest daughter Ella, grabs him right before he falls through a floor vent in Hadley's room. We get him up, we get him in the cage, we fix the problem over there, get it all patched up, go to bed that night, wake up the next morning, and he's gone again. He's trapped again by the cat, this time under an entryway table, and at this point I am done with this hamster. And so I grab this thing, I shove him in the cage, and I start checking every square inch of this cage. And I am fastening every little spot I look. I double check it, I triple check it, and this thing is locked down. No one is getting in or out of this cage because I'm done with this little dude making me look like an idiot and making me search for him every day, all right? So I get this thing locked down. That night we go to bed, and I remember waking up in the morning, and like that's the first thought in my mind. And so I get up and I hurry into Hadley's room and sneak in there, and I check the cage, and I breathe a sigh of relief because finally, for once, he's still in the cage. He's sleeping in his little house. And I know this not because I can see him, but because Mocha does this thing every time he sleeps. He pulls all the bedding in from around his house. He pulls it all in and he seals up the door to it so it's all blocked off. And as I looked in, his door is all sealed up with all this bedding. So I'm so glad. I walk out of her room feeling victorious. I finally beat that little hamster. And I'm so proud of myself. But then a couple hours later, I'm doing some work at our kitchen table. And I hear this scratching, scurrying sound coming from our living room, from our couch, actually. And I'm like, there's no way. That cannot be what I think that, no. I triple-checked that cage. I saw that the house was all sealed up with bedding. In fact, when I heard the noise, I went back and checked the room again. Sure enough, it's all sealed up. So I'm thinking, I must just be imagining things. It's fine. I keep working, but the scratching sound doesn't go away. I'm not imagining things, and sure enough, Mocha is inside our couch. Which means, if you're following here, which means not only is he breaking out of the cage, he's also learned how to cover his tracks, right? Like he's waking up in the middle of the night, sealing off the door to his house with bedding so it looks like he's still in there, and then making a jailbreak, right? He's the smartest hamster in the world. But he's also the dumbest hamster in the world because now he's stuck inside the couch and he can't get out. We end up having to actually flip the couch over and ripping the upholstery off the top of the couch to get him out. This would be the first of 3 times that we would have to rip the upholstery off of our couch to get this stupid hamster out of there. Over and over and over again, he does this. We grab him and we put him in the cage, and he eventually starts running around restless, trying to find a way out. In fact, we realized that's what he was doing the first day. He wasn't playing. He was searching for a way to get out of the cage, searching for a weakness. There's this restlessness in him where he is constantly trying to break out, but every time he breaks out, he gets himself into a worse situation. Trapped by the cat, falling through a floor vent, stuck inside the couch. And I want to say to him, dude, it's not working. What are you doing? All of your efforts to fix your situation are only making it worse. How are you not getting this? But the truth is, I'm a lot like Mocha sometimes. All of us are, actually. This week, we are exploring this beautiful invitation from Jesus to, in the middle of a restless, anxious, exhausting world, a world where everyone recognizes that there's something wrong with us, but all of our solutions just seem to make it worse. Jesus says in the middle of that world, come to me. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. And each night, you're going to get to explore this invitation by looking at a different Jesus story, a story about his life. But in the mornings here, we're going to be taking a slightly different angle. In the morning, we're going to be exploring this invitation through what is perhaps the most famous chapter in all the Bible. Actually, it is, I would say, the most famous chapter in all the Bible, Psalm 23. If you spent any time in church growing up, you know this psalm. And even if you haven't, actually, you probably are somewhat familiar with this psalm. It starts like this, and we'll spend our morning in the first half of it, the first 3 verses. It says this: "The Lord is my shepherd. I have what I need. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He renews my life. He leads me along the right paths for his name's sake." Now, this is kind of fascinating, I think, because this psalm was written 3,000 years ago. 1,000 years before Jesus ever came to earth, this psalm was written. And yet there is something about it that still like grabs a hold of people's attention, something about it that still moves people even today, 3,000 years later. There's something about this that is just kind of timeless and universal. And I think it's because it speaks to this universal longing in every soul, the longing to be at rest. You talked about this last night, but just to be clear, I'm not talking about physical rest, though it may include that. I'm talking about soul rest. The kind of rest that comes when I know that my soul has found its true home. The kind of rest that comes when I don't have to walk around overwhelmed by the worries and fears of this life. The kind of rest that comes when I know I'm forgiven, so I don't have to be buried in guilt and shame anymore. The kind of rest that comes when I know that I don't have to consistently prove myself to feel good, that I don't have to constantly scramble around to take care of myself because I know that nobody else is going to take care of me. Every human heart longs for that kind of rest, that kind of freedom. And so this part of the psalm is universal and timeless. What's not so timeless is the imagery. The psalm starts with these famous words, right? "The Lord is my shepherd." And all of us in here, we know what a shepherd is, but the truth is, most of us don't really grasp the depth of that word picture because we're not real familiar with the ins and outs of a shepherd's job. People 3,000 years ago, they knew. And the writer of this psalm, David, he was intimately familiar with this because he spent the first years of his life as a shepherd. And so he knew firsthand that sheep are some of the most helpless creatures on the planet. Without someone guiding them, they will inevitably get lost. Without someone protecting them, they are defenseless against predators. Without someone feeding them, they'll just eat anything, including poisonous plants. Without someone directing their paths, they will literally just walk off a cliff and die. True story. Back in 2005, there's this little Turkish village called Givash. And on the outskirts of Givash is this hillside where there are 1,500 sheep grazing together. All these different families got their flocks out there. And they're grazing near this 50-foot cliff that kind of falls off the edge of the hillside. And all of a sudden, one of these sheep, whether it's out of curiosity or maybe they just didn't see it, I don't know, but one of these sheep just walks off the edge of this cliff. See, the thing is, sheep are herd animals. And so when this one sheep walked off the cliff, all the other sheep look up and just go, guess that's what we're doing right now. And so then 1,500 sheep proceeded to launch themselves over the edge of this 50-foot cliff. The bad news is that 450 sheep died that day. The good news is that 1,050 sheep survived because rather than hitting the ground, they landed on a soft wool cushion made up of all their dead friends at the bottom of the cliff. This is what sheep are like. Completely dependent on their shepherd for everything. A shepherd in David's time was not just a sheep's guide. He was their protector. He was their provider. He was their physician, their disciplinarian, their organizer. He was everything. Without him, the sheep have no hope. There is no rest for sheep without a shepherd. So when David says, "The Lord is my shepherd," he is confessing two key truths that everyone in this room is going to have to come to terms with at some point in our lives. The first one is this: I cannot find rest for myself. David may start his life as a shepherd, but if you know his story, you know that he ends his life as the king of Israel. He ends his life as a man of power, a man with unlimited resources at his disposal, and yet, even as the king, he recognizes that on the deepest level, in the areas that matter most, he cannot take care of himself. So the question for you is, if David sees this as a king, do you see this? As I mentioned before, every one of us has this deep longing inside of us for rest, because every one of us, I think, somewhere deep inside of us experiences a restlessness. And that restlessness may come out in different ways. We may experience that restlessness through an overwhelming anxiousness that we cannot seem to put at ease. Some of us experience that restlessness through shameful guilt, or an aching loneliness. Or for some of us, it's just this constant craving for more stuff, more money, more experiences, more pleasure, whatever it is to make it kind of go away. And we may try to pretend that we're not restless. We may try to pretend that that's not true. We may try to distract ourselves with our phones or with entertainment or by being busy. But when the noise all settles down, when you lay in bed at night and you finally set that phone down, you know there's something deep inside of you that tells you something's not right. And when we experience it, the natural reaction inside of us is to try to fix it ourselves. At least we think that we're fixing it ourselves. In reality, we're just running to other shepherds, to other people, or to other things that we think can take care of us. We may look to success, thinking that if I will just buckle down and work really hard and get ahead in life, then success will give me the rest that I'm longing for, because I'll finally have significance, or I'll finally have enough financial resources that I don't have to be anxious anymore. Or maybe some of us look to relationships, to a boy or to a girl who will finally make me feel like I'm worth something. Some of us look to our goodness to kind of ease the guilt and the shame of the bad things we've done. Many of us look to addictions like pornography to help us make our way through our depression or our loneliness. And it works for a moment, but not for long. You see, all these shepherds, they promise to care for us. They promise to renew and store us, but they can't. Because every one of these shepherds, rather than them feeding me, I have to keep feeding them. I got to keep working hard to maintain that success, because if I slip up, it may go away, and therefore all my rest and all my peace may go away. I've got to keep pleasing that boy or that girl to make sure that they don't stop loving me so I can continue to feel good about myself. And the hole inside of me that I'm trying to fill through my addictions, I find that it just keeps getting bigger. So now it takes more and more of that thing to make me feel okay inside. Like a restless hamster breaking out of a cage, sooner or later, all of our solutions end up making things worse. Try as I may, I will never find rest through other means, which leads me to the next key truth that every one of us must come to terms with, and that is this: only God can give me the rest that I need. What does David say? Right there in 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I have what I need. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He renews my life. He leads me along the right paths for his name's sake. It's he that will take care of me and do these things. If no one else will care for me, he will. If no one else loves me, he still does. And you may say to yourself, how do I know that? How do I know that the Lord loves me, that God is going to take care of me, that he's there for me, that he's going to provide all these things? I can't see him, so how do I know that? The answer to that question is this: because he proved it to you through his son. There's this other chapter in the Bible, John chapter 10. It's not nearly as famous as Psalm 23, but it's what we call a parallel passage to Psalm 23. Parallel passages are two texts that hit on the same theme, and so they're meant to be read alongside one another. And in John chapter 10, Jesus will use all the language of Psalm 23 to describe himself, to tell us that he is the shepherd who has come to give you the ultimate rest for your souls. And in that chapter, he'll actually speak about all the other shepherds that people try to turn to ease their pain, these shepherds that offer hope and protection and leadership, but in the end, they are simply thieves that bring death. Here's what he says in John chapter 10, verse 10. A thief comes only to steal from you and to kill and to destroy, but I have come so that they may have life and have it in abundance. I have come that you may have, he says, a life of true rest, the life your soul was made for, the life your heart longs for. That is found in Jesus. And here's how you can know. Look what he says in the very next verse, verse 11. I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. You see, this is a shepherd who loves you enough to lay down his own life, a shepherd who made the ultimate sacrifice to deal with your deepest problem, which is not, hear me on this, your deepest problem is not your anxiety. Your deepest problem is not your depression. Your deepest problem is not stress or loneliness or sickness. Your deepest problem and mine is that we were made to know God. We were made to be in relationship with him, but through our sin, we have separated ourselves from him. We have cut ourselves off from God, and you will never find rest apart from the God that you were made for. You will never find life apart from the God who gives us life. But when Jesus died for you, he paid the price for all those things so that they don't have to separate us anymore. That is real love. That is a shepherd worth trusting. Jesus is the good shepherd. He's the only good shepherd. So here's the question for you. Is he your shepherd? And by that, I'm not just asking, do you believe that Jesus is the shepherd? Do you believe that he saves you, that he died for your sins, or that he's the Son of God? Those are all good things, and we should believe those things. But it's one thing to believe that he's my shepherd. It's another thing to live like he's my shepherd. So maybe a better way to ask that question is this. What is your posture towards Jesus? Is it a posture of trust demonstrated through following him, a trust that he has dealt with your sins, that he gives you your identity, that he is worth obeying? Or maybe your posture is one of distraction. Like you call him your shepherd, but if you're being honest, recently you've not spent a lot of time listening to his voice. You've been following other shepherds, trying to find what you need from them. Or maybe yours is a posture of separation. Jesus is not your shepherd, and you would freely acknowledge that. No, he's not my shepherd. And maybe you don't want him to be your shepherd. Maybe you do want Jesus to be your shepherd, but you're not exactly sure how that works or what to do. Maybe you're unsure, and you're trying to figure that all out this week. Wherever you are, I'm just thrilled that you're here to get to hear from him this week. But here's one thing that you need to know. There is no option for you to say, well, I'm just not going to have a shepherd. I'm just going to be in charge of my own life. No, listen. Everyone has a shepherd. Everyone will end up with something that guides and directs their life, something that they look to care for them and to give them provision and security, be that money or success or other people or beauty. But you need to know this, that every other shepherd promises you life and then drains it from you. Here is a shepherd who promised you life and then laid down his for you. This is a shepherd worth following. So come to him this week, and you will find rest for your souls. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow.